Myles Garrett has officially requested a trade from the Browns, according to our own Adam Schefter. Garrett spent all 8 of his NFL seasons in Cleveland, earning 6 All-Pros and the Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. But that isn't enough for Garrett, who put out this statement saying, quote, "While I've loved calling the city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stage won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns." Wow. Stephen A., you surprised by this?
I'm not surprised, and I completely support Myles Garrett. The Browns organization, they've been to the playoffs 2 times in the last 5 years. That's the good news, and that's really not that good. The real bad news is that they've been in 2 playoff games to the playoffs twice in the last 22, 23 years. This is a team that has not gotten it done, and the person that I blame the most, unfortunately, respectfully, is Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson had gotten to Cleveland and balled the way he was capable, the way he showcased how he could ball when he was a Houston Texan, Myles Garrett would not be asking for this trade. He's asking for this trade because he knows Cleveland struggles to find a quarterback. They've left it all on the shoulders of their defense. There doesn't seem to be any relief or any help in sight, and he wants to be in a winning situation because he doesn't believe this to be the case. This ain't about anything more so than the fact that you've gotten suspect production from the quarterback position, and he knows the chances of winning are slim to none.
Totally. He wants to compete, and he knows that he can't there. Garrett has recorded over 100 sacks since entering the league in 2017. Only T.J. Watt of the Steelers has had more over that span. Yeah, speaking of...
on SportsCenter, in this Kansas City quest for a three-peat, a well-traveled, well-heeled storyline here. What's an under-the-radar storyline for Super Bowl 59?
Well, both these teams are really big on converting 4th downs. So you got to play all downs when you play against these 2 football teams. Philadelphia Eagles are around 73%. They're 3rd in the league. Kansas City Chiefs are converting about 70%, which is 4th in the league. So 4th down all of a sudden becomes a big issue when you're defensively. And we know about the tush-push. But beside that, you have to be alert. These guys are 4-down teams, so you got to play every down.
The stress that puts on a defense is what? Like if you're in the huddle, back when you're playing.
Well, yeah, because now all of a sudden they continue to have the ball. I mean, it steals possessions. It keeps your defense on the field.
Yeah, it probably tires you out there on that track. It's going to be humid in that dome. Eagles' offensive line, massive reason why Philly is so effective on 4th down, to your point. Is that O-line and Saquon simply going to be too much for the Chiefs to contend with over 60 minutes, or as we saw last year, maybe beyond 60 minutes?
Well, it's going to be critical that the Chiefs do something on 1st down because you just mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles have the best offensive line in the National Football League, and they create separation from when the ball's hiked to where the runner's at. The problem is Saquon generally gets the ball, he's 2 yards up the field before you even touch him. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So I think this offensive line is big and powerful. Steve Spagnuolo is going to try to find a way to make sure that Saquon doesn't hit those A gaps and B gaps.
Yeah.
Make him bounce outside. Your linebackers, Tranquil and Bolton, can make tackles because if he can hit the line of scrimmage going straight, you got problems.
5 touchdowns, 3 postseason games so far for Saquon. That's Herm Edwards on SportsCenter.
Days away, that touchdown and that they both landed. May the festivities now commence. Super Bowl opening night, a.k.a. Media Day, is today. Jalen Hurts, separate planes for both the Chiefs and the Birds. Eagles up first tonight. Chiefs will soon then follow. Not either team's first rodeo. Randy, quick to point out, this is not a rodeo. It's actually a football game.
It's a football game.
NFL insider Dan Graziano joining the program. Dan, good morning. Good to see you. KC, they're at full strength. Eagles hoping to get closer with defensive captain Brandon Graham on the mend from a torn triceps. What is his status less than a week out here?
Yeah, they're optimistic that he might be able to play at least a little bit in the Super Bowl, which doesn't sound like much, but considering that man tore his triceps in Week 12 and was thought to be out for the season, it is a little bit of a hopeful prognosis. He was able to get into some team drills in practice on Saturday before the team left for New Orleans. So that was a step up. Had only been doing individual drills the 2 days before. So the Eagles are going to take it all the way through this week, see what he can handle in practice once they get back on the practice field down there in New Orleans, and see if there's any way he can contribute. It's far from decided, but Brandon Graham is hopeful and optimistic, and the Eagles have a little bit of hope.
Or not, Hawk, if I said Saquon Barkley is going to rush for 150 yards against Kansas City, believe it or not?
I'm going to go not. 150 is a lot. Come on, Chiefs, have some pride. Don't let that man stomp all over you like that in front of the entire world. I do think they're going to devote a lot of attention to Saquon. It's going to force the Philadelphia Eagles offense to beat them in another way, which is the right strategy. We'll see what Spags has up his sleeve.
All right, we'll talk about that other way in a minute. Meanwhile, Neek, if I said Travis Kelce is going to be the Super Bowl MVP, you believe it or not?
Not. I mean, as good as Travis Kelce likely can play and does play in the playoffs, if he has a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, you know who else has a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns? Patrick Mahomes, the guy who wins MVP every time they're in the Super Bowl.
How about if Kelce winds up winning MVP and retires immediately after the game? How about that? I see it happening. Finally, Kmart, let's go the other way. If I said Jalen Hurts is going to outplay Patrick Mahomes in this Super Bowl, believe it or not?
Believe it. You know why? Because I've seen it. I've literally seen it with my own 2 eyes 2 years ago. And didn't Hawk just say that Saquon Barkley's not going to rush for 150 yards? This is a game where Jalen Hurts, everybody's thinking Saquon's going to be obviously the MVP, but Jalen, I think he could do some damage.
Well, let's talk about that, okay? Let's talk about exactly what Jalen is and isn't going to do. I want to play you a bunch of different sound bites sort of in chronological order. After the NFC Championship game on Sunday, Jalen had an interesting comment about his coach, and then yesterday the coach responded. You're going to hear all of it right here.
He's done a great job. He's done a great job. I guess he let me on my straitjacket a little bit today.
I think he was having fun after the game. You know, we've been winning a couple different ways this year, but I know this, and he said this plenty of times, he don't care how we win, as long as we win, and we do everything we can do to be able to win.
So I have Hawk here as a receiver, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. So him saying what he said, and again, his delivery is what it is, right? He just doesn't seem to have like a comedic.
it's just everything is
smooth. Yes.
But it's also very serious seeming, right? Like, I guess he let me out of my straitjacket. If he smiles, it feels completely
I will
different.
say, I was in the room. He did smile. Like he did, like it was tongue in cheek.
Right.
But like he meant it. He meant it, but not in a way of like I'm trying to show you up, but just sort of like, I could throw the ball if I'm allowed to.
The question I was going to ask you is something or nothing?
It's something. I mean, otherwise there's no reason to even comment on it. Now, he could be taking jabs at the media who says that he'll need to throw it more than he's throwing it for them to win a Super Bowl. But the reality is everything runs through Saquon. This is the ability to run the football. I'm going to hit it to these top 10 receivers that I have on both sides of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the strategy that's worked for them so far, and I think it makes the game incredibly interesting that we have two teams, or a lot of teams, that do things very differently. This is a unique team. You're right. We normally don't see teams make it this far that are so heavily dependent on the running game. But I think that we all know that Jalen Hurts has the ability. He just showed it last week. He showed it at other points in the season. But I think what Jeff and I have been talking about much of this season is, why would you if you don't have to? Exactly. It's like, if you can make $1 million doing an easy job, why go make your job more difficult? But I do think that they've had a unique route to the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to be as easy in the Super Bowl. They're going to get these opportunities like what we see right here, Hawk.
Yeah, and this is one-on-one. This is what we're talking about. We get a motion from A.J. Brown, clear bumper run coverage, 4th down. I mean, if he's even, he's leaving. You cannot guard A.J. Brown in this situation with no safety help. Right? In this moment in the red zone. This is just a straight timing route. I know if I'm A.J. Brown at the bottom of the screen, all I have to do is get this DB to tick his feet. If Jalen is just on time, on that back foot, let it fly, there's no way you can stop that. This is much of the same. Just look at all this cushion he has. Now, this is a zone because it's, hey, we cannot allow you to get beat deep. There is 15 yards of cushion. That is an easy throw it out there, 16-yard gain. And honestly, A.J. Brown could have probably gone for another 15 yards if he wanted to.
So that's the thing. The reason that we always say you have to pass the ball, the reason teams don't run the ball to win is because they generally can't.